The dance that changed everything. Richard Blackstone adjusted his Italian silk tie as he stepped out of his Bentley, the chrome gleaming under the soft afternoon sun. At 52, he commanded respect in every boardroom from Manhattan to Tokyo, his business empire spanning 3 continents. But today, he wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or merger deals. Today was about his son. "Come on, Marcus," he said gently, extending his hand toward the passenger seat. "Remember what we talked about? Just a normal lunch, just the 2 of us." 16-year-old Marcus Blackstone emerged slowly from the car, his movements deliberate and careful. Born with cerebral palsy, Marcus navigated the world differently than most teenagers, but his spirit burned as bright as any young man his age. His eyes, the same steel gray as his father's, sparkled with anticipation. "Dad, you promise this place won't be stuffy like the country club?" Marcus asked, his speech slightly slurred but clear with determination. Richard smiled, a rare genuine expression that transformed his usually stern features. "I promise." Maya's Kitchen comes highly recommended for its ... character. They had chosen this small neighborhood restaurant deliberately. After years of private tutors, exclusive medical facilities, and carefully controlled environments, Richard was finally ready to let his son experience more of the real world. The recent death of his wife, Catherine, had forced him to reevaluate everything about how he was raising Marcus. The restaurant was a cozy establishment with mismatched chairs, local artwork covering the walls, and the warm aroma of home-cooked meals filling the air. It was the antithesis of everything in Richard's carefully curated world, and for the first time in months, he felt his shoulders relax. "Welcome to Maya's Kitchen." The voice was warm and musical, carrying a genuine happiness that made both father and son turn. A young black woman approached their table, her natural hair pulled back in a colorful head wrap, her smile radiating the kind of authentic joy that money couldn't buy. "I'm Amara, and I'll be taking care of you both today." She looked directly at Marcus as she spoke, not with pity or awkward avoidance, but with the same friendly attention she would give any customer. "First time here?" "Yes," Marcus replied, straightening in his chair. "My dad heard the food was amazing." "Well, your dad heard right," Amara laughed, pulling out her notepad. "Our chef Maya doesn't mess around. Can I start you off with some sweet tea? It's made with love and just enough sugar to make your grandmother proud." As Amara took their orders, Richard found himself studying her. She spoke to Marcus as an equal, asked his opinion about the menu, and even shared a joke about the restaurant's quirky decor. When Marcus struggled slightly with pronunciation while ordering, she waited patiently, without finishing his sentences or looking uncomfortable. "Your server seems nice," Richard observed after Amara left. "She treats me like I'm normal," Marcus said simply, but Richard heard volumes in those 6 words. Throughout their meal, they watched Amara work. She moved through the restaurant like a dancer, balancing plates with grace, remembering every customer's name, and somehow making each table feel like they were her only priority. When she brought their dessert, a slice of peach cobbler that Maya had insisted they try, she lingered for a moment. "You know, we have live music here on Fridays," she mentioned casually. "Local artists, really talented folks. Sometimes people even dance." She glanced at Marcus with a mischievous smile. "You strike me as someone who might have some moves." Marcus blushed, but his eyes lit up. "I used to dance with my mom. Before she ... well, before." The moment hung in the air, delicate and precious. Richard felt his throat tighten, remembering Catherine's endless patience as she helped Marcus with physical therapy disguised as dance lessons in their living room. "Music has a way of moving through all of us differently," Amara said softly. "I bet your mom would want you to keep dancing." 3 days later, Richard found himself calling Maya's Kitchen to ask about their Friday night music. He told himself, It was just to give Marcus something to look forward to, but deep down, he knew he was curious about the young woman who had seen his son so clearly. Friday evening arrived with the promise of rain. Richard and Marcus entered the transformed restaurant, tables pushed aside, a small stage set up in one corner, and the warm glow of string lights creating an intimate atmosphere. A guitarist was setting up, tuning his instrument while chatting with early arrivals. "Mr. Blackstone, Marcus?" Amara appeared beside them, wearing a flowing emerald dress that complemented her radiant smile. "I'm so glad you came." The evening unfolded like a beautifully written symphony. The music was soulful and diverse: blues, jazz, folk, and contemporary. Pieces that had the small crowd swaying and smiling. Richard, who typically attended high society galas with carefully choreographed entertainment, found himself genuinely enjoying the authentic atmosphere. When the guitarist began playing a slow, melodic piece, several couples moved to the makeshift dance floor. Marcus watched with longing, his fingers tapping the rhythm against his wheelchair's armrest. "That looks like fun," he murmured. Before Richard could respond, Amara appeared at their table. "Marcus, would you like to dance?" I can't really ... Marcus began, but Amara was already gently taking his hands. "Everyone dances differently," she said simply. "Want to show me your style?" What happened next would replay in Richard's mind for years to come. Amara helped Marcus stand, supporting him with one arm while keeping their hands joined. She moved, slowly, letting him find his rhythm, adapting her movements to match his capabilities. When Marcus stumbled slightly, she turned it into a graceful dip. When his coordination faltered, she made it look like an intentional flourish. But then something magical occurred. Marcus, feeling safe and supported, began to truly dance. His movements, while different from traditional dancing, were filled with joy and expression. He spun Amara carefully, his face glowing with confidence. Other dancers stopped to watch, not with curiosity or pity, but with genuine appreciation for the beauty of the moment. Richard felt tears streaming down his face, the first tears he had shed since Catherine's funeral. He watched his son, truly seen and celebrated for who he was, leading a dance with grace and dignity. Amara followed Marcus's lead, letting him be the guide, the decision-maker, the one in control. When the song ended, the entire restaurant erupted in applause. Marcus was beaming, standing a little straighter, his confidence transformed. As Amara hugged him, Richard saw his son in a completely new light, not as someone to be protected and sheltered, but as a young man capable of leading, of contributing, of shining. "Thank you," Richard said to Amara later, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what you've given him tonight." "He gave it to himself," Amara replied. "I just provided a little support. That's what community does." Community. The word hit Richard like a revelation. In all his wealth and success, he had created walls instead of bridges, isolation instead of connection. He had been so focused on protecting Marcus from the world that he had forgotten to let the world see Marcus's gifts. Over the following weeks, Richard found himself returning to Maya's kitchen, sometimes with Marcus, sometimes alone. He began conversations with Amara that stretched beyond pleasantries, learning about her dreams of becoming a social worker, her evening college classes, her philosophy about seeing people's potential rather than their limitations. "You know," Richard said one evening, "I've been thinking about starting a foundation, something focused on accessibility and inclusion. I could use someone with your perspective." Amara studied him carefully. "This isn't charity, is it? Some guilt-driven project?" "No," Richard said honestly. "It's about changing how we see ability and contribution. My son taught me that, with a little help from an extraordinary waitress." 6 months later, the Blackstone Foundation for Inclusive Communities held its first event at Maya's Kitchen. The restaurant had become the foundation's community partner, hosting monthly events that brought together people of all abilities, backgrounds, and circumstances. Marcus served on the Youth Advisory Board, his confidence and leadership skills blossoming with each passing month. Richard stood at the back of the crowded restaurant, watching Marcus address the gathering about the importance of accessible recreational programs. His son's words were clear, passionate, and inspiring. Next to him, Amara, now the Foundation's Community Outreach Coordinator, beamed with pride. The billionaire, who had once measured success in dollars and market share, now understood that the most valuable currency was human connection. That night, when Amara had let his disabled son lead a dance, she had taught them both that everyone has something beautiful to offer the world. They just need someone willing to see it, support it, and celebrate it. As Marcus finished his speech, to thunderous applause, Richard caught Amara's eye across the room. She smiled and nodded toward the small dance floor where people of all abilities were beginning to move to the gentle music. "Shall we?" she asked Marcus, extending her hand. "Actually," Marcus grinned, "I think my dad should ask you this time. He's been practicing." Richard laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years, as he took Amara's hand and joined his son on the dance floor. He realized that sometimes the most profound life changes be